Hello everybody, welcome back to Cooking with Shirley. We are in the process of making some homemade spaghetti sauce, and the spaghetti sauce is made from fresh tomatoes. Some are homegrown from my own garden and some are from the produce stand. So I have the tomatoes cooking. I had about two basketfuls. Well, let me show you the bowl here. I had two of these pretty full of tomatoes. Probably went through more like three. I had two baskets full, those big baskets. So when I dunked them into boiling water for about a minute, and then I plunged them into some ice water so the skins would loosen, and then I cut them into chunks and I put them over here in the pots. I'm going to move the camera a little bit. Don't have my cameraman today, but I have them in two pots because I had a good amount. But if you can see, there's some foam in it. So what I do is I just skim off the foam. And as you can see, we've got some in here. So that's what the foam looks like. And I like to skim that off just like I do when I'm making my jams and jellies. Just skim the foam off as it's cooking. And right now I'm not adding anything in there except for the tomatoes. No water either. The tomatoes are plenty watery. So I'm just skimming off the foam. And now I've got a pan here on the burner with some olive oil in it. And I've got one large onion here that I have cut up into pieces. I'm going to put that into the pan with the olive oil. I'm going to add some garlic. I have about 4 cloves here. Add that in the pan as well. So I'm going to saute that for a little bit until it cooks down. Once that cooks down, I'm going to add some ground beef to it. And the beef that I use is grass-fed beef, which this is the kind that I have at the grocery store. So that's what I'm going to put, and I have 2 packages of that. So I'll put that in a little bit once it cooks, the onion gets soft and the garlic. Now in the meantime, I have an onion here that I have roasted in the oven along with bell peppers, 2 bell peppers, and a garlic. So I've roasted them, and now I'm going to peel them. As you can see, when you roast it and then let it cool down, the skin just peels right off. They smell really, really good. Just the smell of roasted peppers. You could also use hot peppers if you like. I just used what I had. I didn't have any hot peppers, but I did have 2 bell peppers. So I just peeled them off. The garlic is going to be a bit of a mess, but you peel those, and those just give a little bit sweetness to the flavor. So and then the same thing with the onion. I'm just going to peel that off, and then I will use the knife as well. Get it right here. And once I do that, after I peel it, I'm going to add it in. After the tomatoes cook down a little bit more, I'm going to chop it up, my bell peppers and my garlic and my onion that I roasted. I'm going to chop that up and add that to my spaghetti sauce. I've got it in 2 pots because I prepared all the tomatoes I had. In one pot, it was over, it was pretty full, so I thought I'm going to put it in 2. Once it cooks down, and it's going to cook down, and I will get a masher and mash it too, and it'll get pretty soft and cook down quite a bit. Probably want it at half. It'll cook down to about half the amount. So I'll end up with 1 pot. Might have a little bit more, but anyway, I'm going to let it cook for a while. It took me about an hour to prepare my tomatoes. Like I said, I had a good bit of tomatoes, so it took about an hour. Now they're cooking. I'm getting ready to cook down my meat, and then I'm going to add my vegetables that I have roasted. Thought about roasting tomatoes, but I haven't tried that, so I didn't want to try that. Also, I'm going to add some fresh herbs. I have oregano and from my garden that I dried, and some thyme. I had that in the first video I did. I'm just showing you how we're doing it. And this is the basil, not from my garden, and some parsley from my garden. and then some bay leaf. And I will add all that into the tomatoes. Once I cook them, I want to cook it down and get it into one, but I might do half and half while it keeps cooking, so I didn't have a pot big enough. And then I'm going to add some wine. I don't know how much, I just pour some in, probably about 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup, depending on how much tomatoes I have. And then also homemade plum jam, and I put that in because a lot of people put the sugar in there to cut the acidity of the tomatoes, but instead of sugar I put some homemade jam, which is essentially sugar and fruit, or as well as the wine. Both of those have some sugar in it, which will add to the flavor of the spaghetti sauce and cut that acidity from the tomatoes. I may add some salt. I don't usually cook much with salt, maybe just a little bit, but usually if you have enough other flavors, you don't need any salt. I may put some freshly ground pepper in there as well. And after it cooks a little bit, and I don't know if you can see it on the camera there, but after it cooks a little bit down, well, we're not good without my cameraman, but once it does, then we'll get back on the camera, and it's probably going to take a few hours. It's been cooking about 20 minutes now, so I'm going to give it about 3 hours, and then I'll come back with you after it's cooking down. And the noodles I'm going to use, because I don't eat gluten-free, and I don't eat gluten, so I eat gluten-free, grain-free, so it's kind of hard to find pasta. I can't eat rice as well either. So I eat a bean thread noodle, and so I will show you those. They're made out of bean threads. So bean is not a grain, or doesn't have gluten in it either. So that's what I use. They're like a translucent thin noodle. And so we'll be back with you in a little bit once the spaghetti sauce, wish this was up higher so you could see it, but once it gets cooked down, then I'll come back with you and show you the finished product and how it tastes. And thank you for cooking with Shirley.